you for coming, everyone. It's really, really nice to see you all here. I'd like to welcome you all to Bureau Happold. For those of you that don't know Bureau Happold, we are a multidisciplinary engineering practice working in the built environment. You can see the sort of work we're doing here, ranging from sort of building scale up to city scale. Little shiny Battersea power station in the background there. My name's Andrew Best. I'm one of the partners here, and I'm a structural engineer. And just delighted to have you all here. But if you'll indulge me, I'm going to tell you a little story. About a month ago, we were in the same space, and one of our colleagues, an acoustician called Serafino, was giving a presentation. And he'd just been in Sicily doing a workshop for architects and musicians. And they were building this, as part of the workshop, they were building an acoustic shell which to hold, to shelter musicians and to hold this little acoustic concert. And so he was telling us about this, and it was really cool. It was really, really interesting and charming. And then he played us, being an acoustician, he recorded some of this, and he played us some of the outcomes from that. And there was this room full of rapt engineers sitting here listening to Vivaldi's Four Seasons. And I was quite enchanted. I thought, this is not engineering as I know. This is cool. This is, engineering is really coming along. So I thought that was good, but now look at us. There's a room full of gays. This is fantastic. It's just fantastic. There's that engineering is celebrating its LGBT sort of contributors, and it's so cool to see you all here and so many nice friends and supporters. So I'm, dead chuffed to have you all here. I've also been told I need to do in the unlikely event of an emergency sort of speech. Depending on which emergency, the toilets are just down there. The other emergencies out there. But enough. I'm going to hand you over to our host for the evening, Captain InterEngineering himself, McBride-Wright.
Brilliant, thanks Andrew. Hi everyone, thanks for coming along to our event on Home and Abroad, experiences of LGBT engineers in the workplace. I thought I'd just start off by just giving you a bit of background to InterEngineering, if you haven't heard about us or heard about us through our promotion perhaps for the event. We founded InterEngineering in December 2014, and we've been going from strength to strength. We've got over 220 people now on our mailing list, and the whole point of our mission, why we set up, was to connect, inform and empower LGBT engineers and their allies. And the key is to really plug a gap in the market within engineering. You see a lot of advancement in terms of diversity and inclusivity in banking, in law, finance, and those companies have active D&I policies that map their workforce. Whereas I'm sure you may all have similar situations in your firms where you work. Engineering is very far behind. We've got a journey to go on. And that's why we set ourselves up to try and help achieve that. Because not everyone is going to join Stonewall yet, for their workplace equality index. So our aim is to try and get the early adopters and latecomers, bring them together, and then through people in this room to go off and motivate you to maybe consider starting up networks in your own firms, and then we can help supply resources for developing those. And then likewise, we do a lot of partnering with the Royal Academy of Engineering and Stonewall, and we've hosted some roundtables on sexual orientation equality in the engineering sector, because it is still quite an awkward conversation, and so through that we're trying to get top-down change within the engineering sector, so getting senior managers on board to actually go about instigating change, because really change won't be embedded until it's at the middle manager level. So that's where we're at. So the point of this evening is to have a discussion around people who've worked overseas and who work in the public sector. So I'll just give a brief introduction to our panellists. We've got Grant Hayden. Grant is an electrical engineer from BP. He's been working there since 2002, initially in shipping and then in exploration and production. He's travelled extensively while working on board oil and gas tankers, and he's been an expert beautiful city of Adelaide, Australia. And in its first year of being listed in the Australian Pride and Diversity Index, Aurecon ranked 25th overall. Recently moving to the UK, he's been an active volunteer for Bristol Pride as the Pride Manager, as well as working with the IPME on the Southwest Members Group and Bristol 2015 European Green Capital. Our final speaker is Hayley Barnden, safety engineer. We're currently working for Defence Equipment and Support as part of the MOD. After completing an engineering apprenticeship in 2013, Hayley started working there. She is co-chair of the DE&S LGBT Staff Network and part of the wider MOD Staff LGBT Forum. So I think we've got a nice panel of speakers for tonight, and we'll get the conversation started. So,
what should we also project that? I don't know. I'm just a structural engineer.
That's fine, we'll just keep going. So, I thought we'd start off with just asking each of you, what does it mean to you to be an LGBT engineer? Right.
So, I don't really think of myself as a non-LGBT engineer, just an engineer that happens to be gay. I quite like that engineering is not the stereotypical profession for LGBT. No offense to anyone who's got a hairdresser as a partner or whatever. I quite, when I introduce myself to people, what do you do? And they're always like a little bit surprised, and I like that. Loads of things. Australian cyclist, kite surfer that just happens to be gay and an engineer. So I don't define myself as a gay engineer. Really. It's at work. It doesn't. Shouldn't matter, so
I think that's important.
There's no point to think of myself as a gay engineer, just an engineer, same as all the other engineers.
It forms part of your personality. It's one facet of us as individuals, isn't it? I mean, what about yourself, John?
Well, I sort of just think it's sort of being your true, authentic self at work. Not hiding behind words like my partner, being able to say my partner Ben, or my boyfriend Ben, and maybe husband someday. And just being treated like anyone else. I guess being an engineer, you're a human being, and being LGBT, you're a human being, and everyone wants to be treated the same.
So you touched on a point there about the pronoun game, being euphemistic, saying he or she. We live in a heteronormative society, so you're constantly coming out at work, especially when you're working in new client teams, and it's something that straight people maybe don't necessarily click or even see as being an issue. Hayley, what about yourself?
So for me, being a female engineer, I'm a minority, and being a lesbian, I'm a minority, and for me that means that my lived experience is different to the average engineer that I work with, which tends to be a straight white male that's about 50. So I find that can be really valuable, sort of going into meetings, into discussions, that my experience and my approach to problems can be different, and I think that's really important when coming up with engineering solutions to things, that you have got that diversity of thought.
That's very true. So our next question is actually talking about working overseas. Should engineers embrace or avoid working overseas when we're presented with the opportunity, especially if they're in less inclusive countries? Grant, I want to start with you. You spent a substantial amount of time working overseas, in Angola in particular. I've reached out to you myself personally for advice on working over there. How did you find working in a country which has no protections for LGBT people?
There's two bits to this. When I first started working overseas, I'm Australian. I moved to Singapore, just a couple of days after I finished my final exam in Tasmania. So growing up in Australia, going to university in Tasmania, wasn't particularly progressive at the time. It was actually illegal to be gay at university in Tasmania. So, and I knew Singapore wasn't also very progressive, most forward thinking. So I did this closeted at work when I was 2 years in Singapore. So I didn't really have any experience of being a gay engineer in Singapore. I was closeted and it was fine, no problems. Then I started work on different shipping company, going all over the world. So a very small group of people on a liquid natural gas carrier, also closeted. So, and that was fine. I'd been doing it for 32 years, so it was no problem to carry on doing that at work. So I didn't really have any experience to share that. It was fine, not ideal, but I managed. But then I moved to London in 2005 and felt, my first flat was in Vauxhall, living the dream. And I knew BP had a Pride network, so I had some supportive work if I needed it. So I thought, right, here we go. It's going to happen. I'm 33, so I decided to come out at work. So I did that, and I worked for a couple of years in the BP office here, and no problem. BP Shipping, really old-fashioned company, 100 years old just this year. Very hierarchical there, military. But yeah, that was all fine. My first overseas posting was to South Korea, a shipyard. So dealing with international mobility and HR and, definition of a family or a partner, it sort of came up. And I did have one issue. My line manager in South Korea didn't think that I should be entitled to the same return flight arrangements for my partner. My partner got 3 flights a year, but they were transferable to me, recognising that the host country might be less than desirable to visit. So I was due all these flights home, and he didn't approve the expenses for it. So I sort of had to go above his head, get HR involved, and say, look, I'm entitled to all these flights. Boss doesn't want to assign the expenses, so that was kind of an issue. So it all got sorted in the end, but my relationship with my boss was a bit soured because of that. He felt that I'd shot on his toes or gone above his head a bit, but he should have known better. I've worked in Singapore a couple of years. That was fine. I told you it was president. Angola specifically, no problems. I was out to everyone at work before I went there. Honest with HR and international mobility before I went. Some of these countries, it's like you said, you never stop coming out, yeah? So lots of new work colleagues, new teammates, different nationalities. So you sort of tread a bit more carefully when I start an overseas assignment to sort of try and gauge reaction, how it's going to land, yeah? Especially places where there's no projections. So in Angola, my sort of approach was, although I didn't hide it, I didn't really tell anyone that didn't ask.
Yes.
So yeah, but my phone or my link or whatever on my computer, not hiding away in the phone booth or whatever. Conversations home to my partner John, so people must have overheard those conversations. Yeah, and it was all fine. I often think that I have found that the public opinion in places often is far more accepting than the law. So yeah, you don't necessarily have to hide yourself away. I never had negative experience really in Angola, and I was there for 3 years. I think you can, it was fine. It's perfectly fine. Yeah, I would say go for it.
And I think that's one of the key points. Is it career limiting to not take some of these opportunities? How can HR support you? And it's about, as HR themselves, it's a journey into this new uncharted space. And so John, how do you find working in the UK compared to Australia? What attracted you over here?
Well, I only just recently got a job over here after being here for about 4 months. I moved over because my partner Ben got a job over here. So both decided we really liked it last year when we came over and visited, and always thought we'd come over, not as soon, because I'm only 2 years into coming out of uni. So it was pretty soon. And then basically came over to Bristol and just recently got a job. So finding the difference between the culture of, I guess, recruiters here is not as prominent in Australia, so trying to get used to all that sort of stuff. And we're sort of attracted to the UK because it's very similar to home. Half the time I have to remind myself that I'm in a different country. I feel like I'm just in a different state in Australia in a way. There are little differences occasionally, but you just feel like you're at home. And yeah, basically we just moved over here. We sort of always wanted to expand our careers as well, and the UK has more opportunities in engineering. And when you get to move to a different country, you get to sort of challenge yourself, you move out of your comfort zone, you start to think differently, you start to use different processes. You're exposed to a whole bunch of new people, new cultures, and through that I think you sort of inspire some sort of innovation within yourself. And we just really love to travel, so we thought it'd be awesome to come over.
Great, you get to be closer to Europe.
Yeah, exactly.
Use your weekends, good for that. Hayley, have you ever worked overseas, and do you feel as a woman there are further barriers in addition to being LGBT?
I've never worked overseas, no. As an apprentice, when I joined in 2010, it started defence cuts, so there was just an outright ban on apprentices going abroad. They have relaxed that slightly now, where they say, if you can find a placement, they'll pay for you. Which, seeing as placements just want the free labour, that's few and far between. So I've gone straight from that into sort of my current role, and there's, the first I get there was sort of fast lane on Barry, which is really exciting. But yeah, I do sort of feel that there would be sort of more barriers. My thoughts on it is that being a lesbian, I can, if I choose to, not tell people. I could not come out, I could go to these places and I could pretend to be straight, or just, not bring it up and not tell people, and it's not something I can say I would be particularly happy doing it, but it could be done, whereas I can't go somewhere and not be known as a woman. It is not, you can't not come out as a woman, it's not, not possible. And a lot of the places where they have these barriers for LGBT people, they're not particularly brilliant on women's rights as well. I know that there are some places at work where they will tell women not to apply for the jobs because the host countries won't work with them. And there's been a recent case, it's not in engineering, but in one of our other grad schemes where they've done this, they've said, women graduates, please don't apply for this role because we won't give it to you. But to make things fair, we'll block the men from applying for this other role. And there's a gay man, and he's like, well, I don't particularly want to go to this country, but now I'm blocked from going to this other country. So they've sort of accidentally, and I've had to go in my role as a sort of chair, sort of point it out. And they were quite shocked, but as a woman, that's something I do think about. That if I go to these places, would I want to go somewhere that's going to treat me differently?
Yeah, no, that's you touch on the point about HR being in conversation with the workforce. It's really important that they're kept up to date and they know the issues that we can face. And you mentioned about sort of from a branding perspective, places that maybe aren't inclusive for women are most likely not going to be inclusive for LGBT necessarily. It can flip the other way. I think there's a statistic that women are attracted to firms that have active LGBT networks, because if they're supporting LGBT, then they're probably definitely going to be supporting women in their career through mentorship. I mean, Brad, maybe you've already covered this to some extent, but based on your experience, if there's anyone in this room that's sitting thinking about working overseas, considering an assignment in a place that's got no protections for LGBT people, what advice would you give?
Yeah, first, and far more important than anything else I've got up with you, is go for it. It's so awesome. I'm here for 18 months now. After I finish in Angola, I'll move to Baku next year, and I just feel so normal, like a corporate wage slave, and really boring. When you introduce yourself to people, it's, I work in Angola, 6 and 2 rotation. It's brilliant. So I quite like that. So go for it. The experience, different culture, fun, the friends you make, the professional network you make, it really marks you out as someone with a sort of can-do attitude at work. Opens all kinds of doors. At the end of your assignment, you'll be considered for all sorts of roles that you might not be considered if you didn't go, especially if you were offered and turn it down. So if you're thinking about going, make sure if you get it that you want to go. Don't back out. So I'm a big fan of working overseas. Second of all, if you do decide to go somewhere, be honest with HR and international mobility. It can be a little bit dodgy. If you work for a UK company and you're afforded protection under the Equality Act, so you should expect exactly the same treatment as anybody else. In terms of, I know it sounds really petty, but like accommodation, like how many bedrooms your flat is, and whether it's downtown or way out where all the families live, or all this stuff. Whether you've got a partner or a dog, all that stuff makes a difference when you go on an expat assignment somewhere. So yeah, be honest, because if it all gets complicated, and it often does, you don't want to cause yourself any problems. Be sensible. Some people would really rather not know who are LGBT. You have to be, as a visitor in these countries where there's no protection now, you have to be especially considerate of their culture. So just be sensible, really.
You made a point about turning down roles and then it potentially being career limited. Is that just in the mindset of the managers, or how should that be the case, or should you be able to openly say, I don't want to go here for these reasons?
I think if your reasons are valid, like I would think twice about going to Saudi or anywhere with very extreme religious beliefs. This is one of the points I want to make. It's often not the country, the host country, or the laws of the host country that's the problem. It's unfortunately the religion and law are involved. But yeah, if the public opinion is that you should go to church on Sunday, and if you wear a ring, you should be married to a woman. Why haven't I got kids? I'm 43. They're all really difficult questions to answer. So I probably wouldn't go. After I had a particularly bad experience in Algeria last year, and I would think twice about going anywhere. Well, I'm not going to Algeria. That's all. Yeah, I wouldn't go anywhere. Dubai, maybe. But so
I guess it's all about looking and doing some investigations into the countries that you're potentially where your firms operate.
Yeah, you have to do a little bit of research. It's no point applying for a job in a country where you can't get a work permit or a visa, or also be very wary of my company in Algeria. It was because it was for a joint venture company. I worked for BP, and it was a 3-year assignment in Algeria. In Aminas, the gas plant, the hostages, the bombs and all that. He was part of the re-entry team to start that gas plant up again. And they asked me to leave after 3 days, after they found that I was gay. Well, they didn't ask me to leave, they asked me to come back for a meeting with the head of country in BPE, and I'm like, yeah, what about what?
So I guess whilst firms may have all these policies and best intentions, if they're in a joint partner venture where the joint venture partner doesn't have that same values.
So because it was a joint venture and the Algerian company was the majority shareholder, I didn't have protection under the UK Qualities Act or BP's policies. And BP was very awkward. They did all they could, went right up to the head of diversity. The global head of diversity was very awkward. I was on 10 weeks of gardening leave. No one knew what to do with me. So just do a bit of research first, especially if it's a joint venture where you lose the protection of your company's policies.
Okay, that's a really important point. John, at Oricon, when you were working there in diversity training, what are the implications of rolling out LGBT diversity training programs in a big consultancy? Which works in these countries that are less inclusive. How do you go about that?
Well, with this question, I consulted the diversity manager at Oricon, who's a lovely woman who is passionate about all diversity, not only LGBTI, but I guess women in engineering and industry, and I guess Aboriginal and Indigenous sort of rights. And she sort of gave me a very fun HR answer, so I'm just going to sort of probably read more from that because I don't want to make a mistake. She said, while most countries like Singapore don't sort of protect employees under the employment law against discrimination based on sexual orientation or gender identity, the key for Oricon working in these countries and sort of, trying to also be diverse was to not assume that staff in countries like Singapore don't support LGBTI networks and rights. Like Grant was saying, you find that most people actually do. and obviously you cannot have networks there. You can't go out and have like I guess a pride network in Singapore or in North Africa, but you can sort of share the great work that the other networks are doing, such as in Australia when we were starting out our journey. And it was actually last year they released a sustainability report in which it was released globally, so in countries like Singapore, North Africa, which obviously within North Africa it's illegal to be LGBT, and there was no backlash or negative sort of implications of that from the clients or from the staff, and that was sort of seen as a positive because obviously we might lose, Oricon might have lost business or people might have stopped working with us, so we're actually quite happy that happened. It was a bit of a risk putting it in there, but putting it out there and no negative feedback was actually something that was quite positive. And the key to the LGBT networks globally is to also link it back to the company values, such as show respect for others. So that's sort of how it all works. So it's sort of starting out, I guess, in Australia first and trying to move to New Zealand and then sort of looking where they're going to go from there, or if they can go from there.
And so some of those key points are like when you're putting together your business case for setting up your networks internally, there's the moral reasons for doing it, but there's also just the buy-in that's needed and the bottom line. How does it affect the bottom line? And I think some of those points cover that, linking it back to the vision statement, the values that underpin the company culture. It helps sales it, and then likewise they can talk about it on social media and it attracts a wider pool of talent to the business. Hayley, in DE&S, what is the stance of the civil service on the requirement to work overseas? Are you expected to?
So for the civil service, it's a very wide organisation, so I can't answer for the whole of it, but for defence in particular, for civilians at least, it's entirely voluntary. So there's a few different ways you'll go abroad with work. We've got in support of operations, so somewhere like Ambassador, where the military are out there sort of doing operations, we might go out and sort of in emergency do repairs, actually ourselves, check up on things, and that, from what I've heard, is a bit like just being at home because it's our space, we own it, and wouldn't be any different to being at home. The other one, then you've got them being a defence attaché, where you are stationed in that country. I don't think there's any particular roles where you do that as an engineer, so it's not something I've particularly looked into. But again, the position is entirely voluntary, and you don't have to go for it, and you wouldn't be expected to. And then the other one is something like with the new Wilfleet auxiliary tankers that are being built over in South Korea. So I know their team go out to South Korea fairly regularly, but only sort of for a week or two at a time. So, but again, that's quite clear in the terms of reference that those trips happen, but you would have to be open and honest in your application about whether you'd be comfortable going somewhere like that. And again, they can't make you go. It shouldn't negatively affect your career. If you say, I don't want to travel to these places, they are perfectly capable of making other arrangements, such as video conferencing.
I guess it's about knowing what you're signing up for.
Yeah.
I can't remember which firm it was, but I remember a story about an engineer who was supposed to travel to a meeting in Moscow for a meeting, and then everything was kicking off over there. The team found out that he was gay, and so therefore he didn't want to go, but the firm got round it by having video conferencing, so he still got to have his input, but was respected with his wish to not have to travel to Russia. So it's about making the firm know. So just moving on to a general question for all of you. What are each of your experiences of LGBT networks, and how have you benefited from them personally? So we've heard about some of your experiences, but how have they helped you personally as an LGBT engineer?
So when I first came to London, I knew I had this little big pride, so it sort of empowered me to come out at work. I was 33 when I moved here, so my whole working life before that I was positive. It sort of empowered me to come out, and I knew I had the support if I needed it. Turns out I didn't need it, and everyone at work was fine. So that was the main positive for me. It has been a bit up and down. I've been a member since then, 2005, at BP Pride. going back to what you said earlier about the banking, when my partner is a banker, used to share the diversity inclusion network at City. So I know they're way ahead of us engineers or engineering companies. The BP Pride network is, the vast majority is traders or HR or IT. There's very few engineers. So I'm quite pleased to represent in BP Pride. So that's what I take to pride, I think. Having said that, there was zero help in the Algeria fiasco. They just couldn't do anything. It felt slightly like they were talking the talk, but the BP wasn't just BP Pride. I was talking to my first meeting was with the head of HR for North Africa region and the country manager. BP Pride.
I think
no help at all.
I think it's how can they support you. I think at least having a network in your firm helps people out there on the operational basis. One of the key things in InterEngineering that we really want to target is getting to those people that are out there on site, because it's a different culture to just sitting in a nice lovely office in London. Being able to help people over there really helps. And we've actually had emails to our inbox, about 10 separate emails over the last 10 months, I guess, from LGBT engineers who work all over the place that aren't out at work, but just reading positive profiles, it's helped them. They actually had a student email us once as well, didn't we? Saying that his career was going to be ruined. His mum and dad said, you need to consider something else if you're gay. You can't be a gay engineer. But we were able to say, hey, yeah, you can. And it's people like that we need to attract into the profession, because we do have a lead talent pipeline. John, what about yourself? How have you benefited from the networks?
Well, I found the network that I had at Oregon was quite supportive. You could go into the meeting. I was sort of more positive at work when I initially started, and then I decided I'd join the Pride network because I was like, oh, this could be quite cool. Then I joined, and it sort of made me feel more confident in myself to go out and, I guess, be a gay engineer, and be able to talk about things like my partner and feel confident about things. And it also gave me a bit of self-confidence. I ran a few events, and it gave me sort of a platform to go and talk to senior engineers and senior people in the business. And it gave me that sort of confidence and passion and drive that I sort of carried on from there. That's pretty much what it's given me.
Hayley?
I would probably reiterate what John was saying. When I started my apprenticeship, we spent our first year at college, and the average age was about 45, and this is 21. So being at college was good, I didn't worry about it at all. But when I came into the workplace, you're then sort of put on your own in placement with a bunch of strangers that were all a lot older than me, and I wasn't sure how they were going to react. So I felt something like the only girl in the village, and it wasn't until sort of towards the end of my second placement when I discovered the mod LGBT forum, and just knowing that there weren't any other engineers there at the time, it was so helpful to know and comforting to know that there were other LGBT people within the organisation, that if I did run into problems, that they would understand, because I was so confident that if I had a problem, that the apprentice team would get it, that they wouldn't just see it as me, being awkward or difficult. And so that has then progressed to my department, DNS, now having our own LGBT network, which I'm coach of, and it's just really helped my confidence, and I get to do things that, as a junior engineer, I don't get to do in my role, like chair meetings and actually be in charge of stuff, and it's so good for my professional development.
I think that's important. Having whatever network you're part of, being part of a network gives you access across the verticals, and that's actually one of the main communication messages that I'm using in KVR where I work to foster development, to set up a network. There's a really good comprehensive graduate network, but nothing once you get further on into your career. So how do we get communication, get people talking who are a partner in a firm or a senior manager with new graduates? It's but if you're part of an LGBT network or a women's network, that happens in that situation. But as I've said, engineering is behind other sectors, and that's why we want to speed up the curve. I'm interested to explore the public sector versus the private sector. The public sector think in the UK anyways, because under the Equality Act they have a requirement to do so, to be seen to be inclusive and diverse, and I think that's why you have a lot of diversity and inclusion professionals that work in these firms. So Hayley, you work in a public sector organisation, if I'm right in saying that. How do you think it's preferable to a private firm?
Well, I've never worked in a private firm, so I can't really compare them, but I think you're right to say, yeah, because we are, assuming sort of the government laws come in, we are immediately sort of have to put them in practice and be shown to be doing best practice, but it's quite nice to hear you say that there is that perception, because there was recently Dan Summerskill, the ex-CEO of Stonewall, did a report into the civil service, in particular on being LGBT, called Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and it's not a very good report. It's pretty damning. It mentions nice things about the Home Office and the Environment Agency. The rest of us get slated quite badly. But that said, there are all these separate organisations that do then have this one vision, and out of that, there has been a massive push towards diversity and inclusion, and now the current Armed Forces Minister, Penny Mordaunt, has came to London Pride, she's been on the Stonewall Allies programme, and so once they get going, things happen really quickly, but it can take quite a while to galvanise some of the senior leadership into understanding that, you know, spending public money on this is a good idea. There is benefits to it.
Yeah, and that's one of the keys, getting the hook in from the top down, getting someone's buy-in to instigate change. It helps you when you're asking for change. Grant, so we can go small scale to big scale. How is it working as an LGBT engineer in BP in general?
Yeah, I think the bigger the company, the easier it is. So, you know, it gave me the confidence to come out and be myself. If I was a very small engineering firm, I might not have been so confident. I'm 43 now, and I came out when I was 33. So with that 10 years of hindsight, I wish I'd done it way earlier. And I think it probably would have been a similar experience in a smaller company. You know? Especially now, or even 10 years ago. You can't have a calendar on your desk of a bikini-clad woman at BP. You know, you're very, very protected, and everyone's very sensitive about all sorts of issues. Yeah? And LGBT is just one of those issues.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think bigger companies it's probably easier, but you shouldn't be afraid in a smaller company. You're still afforded the same protection under the law, and it's the same people with the same public opinion, yeah, no matter how big the company is.
True. And then I guess you've got subcultures within a big company as well, so it can vary from team to team, I guess. John, do you think that the culture within your organisation was changing with the introduction of the Pride Inclusive Network?
Well, I sort of felt that it was sort of already there, but it wasn't really on the surface. Sort of through the year, especially in my own office, because Oricon operates in a number of offices all over Australia, so you don't know what's really going on with some others. But hearing from the diversity manager about the other offices, some of them were a lot less inclusive than my own. I was lucky to be in charge of an event called Wear a Purple Day, where basically you wear purple for the day to sort of show your support. And I ran with the event and sort of set it up and advertised it, and then promoted it to the office. And then on the day, I was like gobsmacked about how many people wore purple, even putting on like a purple ribbon to show you that support and gave you that confidence to be who you are in the workplace. And even though I might have been able to see it because I was colourblind, I assumed that most people were. And then sort of like throughout that, then I started talking to people about, you know, myself a little bit better and a bit more happier. But I think it's a bit of a journey still with companies, especially in Australia, where they're sort of on the cusp of gay marriage or not gay marriage again. So it's sort of it's hard to know where people stand. And people might think they're diverse or already showing that diversity, but are not willing to put money behind a LGBT network. So I think it's a journey, but I think it's slowly changing, or at least it's coming to the surface a bit more, so you can see what's around.
I think, it's a journey that different firms are on at different stages in the process. So when you were out in Angola, and you made the point about sometimes the locals being a bit more open than the laws of the country, or it isn't as hard an attitude maybe than you might perceive as a person who doesn't work there. How did you navigate that sort of cultural fluency when you were out there?
It's the same in Singapore. I've worked in Singapore a lot. 132 days in Shangri-La, lovely. So although it's illegal, there's gay bars and stuff, and it's the same in Angola. Friday night, there's one bar that's gay friendly. So you ask around about it, you meet people, and you say, okay, I can be myself here, or it's not as maybe taboo as I first thought. When I first went there, I thought, okay, this is it. Behave yourself. 3 years here. Don't do anything wrong, don't get in trouble. So you just have to use common sense and really be careful. I think it will be similar in loads of the places. Dubai, loads of places it's frowned upon, but it's kind of okay. So just a couple of points. Do the research and know the law. Don't break the law. Because your company will drop you like a stone. They won't come to your defense, even if you don't agree with the law. HR or whatever, they won't be any help at all if you've done something illegal, because they're also visitors in that host country, so they don't want to tarnish the relationship with the government. So they won't, they won't come to your defense if you've broken some kind of, gay law, but don't be doing anything you shouldn't be doing. Be sensitive to local culture, especially if there's extreme religious views. Don't take your rainbow flag to the beach. And just go for it. It's so awesome. I love it. I'm going to do this now until I retire.
That's because it's so well paid.
There's also that. I'm a lovely flat.
Flat and box.
Need Porsche every 2 years. Yeah. So
I think it's about you need to consider whether or not you want to put yourself in that situation. I think I would find it quite hard personally. I actually had to think about starting InterEngineering and having my name associated. It's blindingly obvious that I'm gay now, like just looking on the internet, because my name comes up with some of the profiles that I've written in media. So that plays on my mind for potential future job roles if someone looks me up, but I believe so passionately that I would want to see that change in the future that's why I've kind of put my mark in the sand to do that. And I also believe that firms have got a role to play actually in changing the laws in other cultures. They can have influence. They may not be there to change the law of the land, but they can certainly have influence. If you line it up with investment in local talent, then you can sometimes see different conversations start to happen. Hayley, being a role model for future engineers, do you consider yourself to be a role model? And
I think sort of when you ask people if they think that they are role models, everyone's automatic response is to go no one wants to sort of say that about themselves. But I do think role models are really important, and I don't think it's your choice whether to put that label on yourself, but just to be authentic and be visible. I think that's really important, and if other people see me in that way, I'm okay with that. But for myself, I find it important to be visible and be authentic, because I can't see any role models for myself. I was having a conversation yesterday actually with someone from the cabinet office. We were at an event together, and he's not an engineer, he does something else, I can't remember what. But we got talking about what I do, and I brought up the figure for female engineers, which is about 6% nationally, something like that. And we got halfway through the conversation, and he goes, wait, do you mean women engineers as a whole, not just lesbian engineers, is it? And I was like, no, all women engineers. That's not 6% of us are lesbian yet. So, for me to be able to find female engineers in 2 or 3 grades above me, I can probably count them on one hand. I don't know any senior lesbian engineers within my own organisation. I don't know any other organisations that I would say, once I get up to sort of So it makes you wonder, is it possible for me to get that far? Why am I not seeing someone like me in these posts? You know, are they facing barriers? Are they being sort of pushed out of the organisation, or is it just that horrible once you get to those that they don't want to be there? So it makes you doubt yourself and sort of, you know, chips at your confidence about your abilities, and I don't want people coming up behind me to have that same experience.
Yeah. And I guess that's the key, isn't it? Wherever you are in the organogram, looking upwards, but then looking downwards as you start going further up, being able to like keep the communication channels open and incentivize others to do likewise, it helps. So John, setting about starting change in your own workplace, you've had experience of actually setting up a network, and you've also been at Bristol Pride and ran the parade or parade manager. So how did you get involved in all these activities?
Well, I was quite lucky in Oregon to have a very strong diversity manager who came along I was part of the sort of young professionals organisation. She came along to one of the meetings and was talking about all of the diversity groups. I was just trying to get different people to come along, and I sort of saw it as an opportunity to get involved and see what's happening in the business in that respect. So like starting change in an organisation, I think you need to have someone who's very passionate and someone who's probably a bit more of a senior level, and in your group to need to sort of force that change to happen. They need to be able to speak to other people at a higher level about change that they can have and the business case especially behind it. Coming from them, it's going to be a lot stronger than, say, a junior engineer or a mid-level engineer. So if you are starting in that, I would try and recruit someone potentially who's an ally or a senior LGBTI engineer in the workplace. And starting change is pretty simple. I think if you start with, say, a morning tea and sort of, for say, wear a purple day, or start with something else, like some sort of casual drinks, just to sort of speak the word, and like as long as you're not afraid of getting out there and sort of promoting it, I think it's the main thing. And if you're talking to people and you have a passion for it, the passion sort of spreads, and I think that sort of empowers change.
I think one output actually that we might put together is I already know a few people in the audience who are starting on their own journeys within their firm, and I'm doing likewise at KBR. A little pack of like, you know, the key points for convincing senior managers on what the need is. That might be something that's useful to sort of develop and then potentially share around. So, Hayley, you mentioned your role models and your professional profile at work. Has chairing your group, the LGBT group, changed your professional profile at work? Has it helped enhance it?
I think it has, yeah. It's been a really positive experience. When I got offered to sort of run the network, the D&I team approached me and my co-chair Matt, and because we were the sort of the most vocal members of the Mod LGBT forum based in Bristol, and they're like, do you want to run this? And was a bit sort of going, I'm going to have to go, you know, I show up to these events occasionally, but I don't run it, and now I'm going to have to go have a proper conversation with my manager. I want to actually start spending time doing this, and I was quite nervous about how it would be perceived, whether, you know, just showing up to the odd event compared to actually running things would be affected. They were actually really impressed. They thought it was a really positive step, and they could really see the benefits of my development. They knew into the team about how this would have a positive effect on my communication skills, my leadership skills, on all those soft, or what we call core skills, and how that would help those develop. Where, you know, I get a lot of support developing my engineering and my technical skills, but my core and my soft skills, you're sort of left to develop those on your own. And this really helps with those, so I'm seen as someone that is pushing myself to develop, and that's really sort of seen as a positive thing.
That's great. So, I think that's it for our questions on the panel. We've got some time allocated for Q&A, so if we want to open it up to the audience, if anyone's got any burning questions they'd like to ask, maybe just raise your hand and then we can work around. Yes, at the back. You should say your name and maybe the company where you work.
Sure, my name is Ben Assis. I work at Arrow, where I run the game active. shouldn't be underestimated how difficult it is. If you've not been out from the start of your career, as a lot of people get 9 years into a career, if you've been out from the start, it's a lot easier to stand up and be counted. Whereas if you haven't, it's actually quite a big thing to turn around and say, here I am. That's sort of challenging. There are difficulties with that, so it's, well, we should expect our leaders to stand up.
Yeah, no, I can completely see that. It's, I've heard the same from sort of the senior gay men that, it's not just that I don't have any lesbian engineers, that there are a considerable lack of senior lesbian role models, senior lesbian champions anywhere within the organisation, let alone within engineering. And the senior gay male champions that we've got will say the same thing, that that the ones we've got have been out from the start of their careers. The ones that we know of that come out later sort of have the same opinion, that they don't want to be visible, and that for me is quite a struggle to sort of deal with. That I would quite like them to do that, but you've got to accept that it's their life and you can't push people into being out at work, that's not acceptable either. You've got to support them in the way that they need support.
I think one of the statistics recently is about, is it 25% of students that were out at university going into the workplace then go back into the closet.
I think it was even higher.
Oh, is it even higher? 65%. There you go. So I mean that's off the scale, and if you then get those senior role models in the business to actually come out, that's where we can hopefully break down this cycle of sinusoidal in and out.
It does happen. I can tell you the story about BP, Lord Brown and all that. So the executive chair of McBride-Wright at the moment, this guy called Paul Reed. He's the head of integrated supply and trading, so sort of top 10 salaries probably in the global BP. So we convinced him, and he's on board with McBride-Wright now. He was reluctant in the past, so it is possible. It does happen.
Yes.
So I think as women, it's harder for us to find female roles to look up to individually. So that's the first scaffold that there is. But as a lesbian engineer, I would equally look up to a gay male engineer. I do. There's Andrew. There he is. And seeing Andrew do it at such a high level really inspires me. And when I was given an opportunity to work abroad, I wouldn't let anything stop me. How dare anything stop me going and work abroad? Off I went, and yes, I was out, and yes, if I didn't like it, that was their problem. And okay, maybe if it's Saudi, might be. but I would take offence to anyone accepting me any other than me. And having that confidence comes from not just female lesbian engineers, because I don't know any, that are higher than me, but also from the gay male engineers.
And that's a key point, isn't it? Because being LGBT, you grow up and you create a safety net around yourself, don't you? And you choose who you want to come out to. So you've got that heightened sense of awareness, so to speak. So actually, LGBT people tend to make better managers, be good managers. So that's something to bear in mind when you're considering the juncture of going up a technical route or a leadership route. Where do your soft skills align with your technical skills? And a lot of companies do place a lot of focus on the technical skills because they're very important, and sometimes the soft skills training go amiss. So maybe that's another point for these networks for career development. Yes?
Well, I'm at civil engineering in the army. You focus a lot, really on the legal countries where it's illegal to be gay. I just wanted your thoughts on my experience. I've worked in lots of countries where it's illegal to be gay and where being gay carries the death penalty. But my only two negative experiences ever, both been in countries where it's perfectly legal and apparently accepted, being America and sadly Australia, working on a remote mine site. And so I just want your views on actually is the law or the sort of social aspects of it actually more important than your research there?
I think the key difference is, I don't know what problems you have in America or Australia, but the consequence is the difference. Yeah? If you have problems where it's illegal and it all goes wrong, you end up in all sorts of bother, rather than just feeling uncomfortable or, I don't know what the situation really don't want to end up in prison or worse.
I suppose one point is because you know it's illegal, you put effort into avoiding the subject. Can you be lulled into a false sense of security about it?
You know, I've worked in loads of places which are legal. Singapore, Angola, South Korea, and I didn't really temper my behaviour at all, really. And I've never really had any problems. I do avoid visiting oil rigs if I can, because maybe oil field workers are not the most refined bunch of people. And it's shared accommodation. The problem is, it's no problem for me to share bunk beds in a cabin with someone, you know, that's fine. I have thicker skin than that. But for sure, whoever has to share a cabin with me gets all kinds of drama from everybody else there. Yeah? So, you know, I might have overemphasised the law a bit. Work permits and visas, you need to be clear on that before you apply for a job, 100%. And also the bit about the joint venture where you lose the protection of the UK law or your employer. Yeah, other than that, Korea, Singapore, Angola, I never had any problem.
It's all about culture, isn't it? You get cultures within cultures, and the day-to-day runnings of the business, it's not necessarily the same on the shop floor as it is from the corporate HQ, and that's really why we want to get out and regionalise InterEngineering and get people out on the site to become involved. I mean, even through our involvement with BP, I've spoken to Paul, and it's Paul Reed, and the membership is skewed to the IST, Integrated Supply and Trading Operating Centre in London, disproportionately to its engineers in Aberdeen and Hull, etc. So one of the outputs from the Royal Academy of Engineering Roundtable was, where can we co-join companies to create nucleuses of LGBT networks regionally, so that they can support one another. So you get sort of inter-company support, but also intra-company support, I guess. And another key point actually is with networks, where you do have successful networks in place. I went to a fantastic event that InterEnergy put on through McBride-Wright and their positive ethnicity network, looking at being a Muslim in the workplace and the issues with Ramadan and what it brings up. You get it was a fascinating blended approach of a subject that I was quite ignorant of, and so to sit with a panel discussion, listening to some of these points, it was great. And so that's one of the benefits of where you get networks set up. One of BP's employees, Tamur Ali, was ranked as one of Stonewall's leading role models. And an interesting story that Paul told me was that when they published on LinkedIn, I think it was, this, being Muslim and being gay can't coexist, according to 20,000 responses that they got of people not liking this. But the stance that the company took was, well, we're going to stand by our employee and reinforce the cultural values to which the company stand by. So if your firm can get to that place, then I think that's a really good place to be. Do you have any more questions? No? All right. Okay. Well, yeah, I just want to say thank you to Bro Happold for hosting us this evening. If we could just give a round of applause. Vicky for helping with all the organisation, Andrew for hosting us here, the tech team as well for recording for us. I want to say thank you to the panel for offering up your time and travelling across. It's been really nice having you here. You've given some great food for thought. And yeah, I mean, just next steps for us are, if you want to get involved with InterEngineering, please get in touch. We are setting up regional networks now. We work with firms and professional engineering institutes, so we're trying to move forward on that front, and we're always looking for enthusiastic volunteers. So I'm standing between